God help me over the fence, she exclaimed. And then Elise's suicide. The ultimate failure. The Fabian women were wired to be sad. Nana got the blues, the kind that kept her in bed for weeks at a time. It sounded like Felice was the same way. It made sense because Della was too. The blues took forever to abate. Della was familiar with how hopeless it felt to live in fear and all emotion. Flattened by frustrated. Whatever emotional ailment she and Nana had, it sounded like Felice had it worse. But instead of sticking it out, she'd abandoned her daughter, left her alone to defend Felice's honor and reckon for her alleged sins. The weight of Felice's reputation was stifled. And because of it, Della's childhood was miserable. And she wasn't just angry about it. She hated Felice. It was a grudge she carried around with her every day. Yes, Ricky's story about Ezra's curse was unreasonable, crazy talk. But the truth was, Della had always felt there was something explosive about Felice. The suspicion that those schoolyard rumors were true lurked in her mind. Unproven, unpowered. It was in Nana's absolute refusal to discuss her daughter. The small-town stories turned into myths that outlived her mother's short life. The mystery surrounding her suicide. Della had lost 7 babies to late-term miscarriages. She could feel the emptiness in her womb long after they were gone. With each loss, she had to wonder, had Nana felt it when Felice jumped off the mountain? Had she felt that same eternal hollowness? Could a mother's body perceive the loss, no matter how old the baby was, or how far away? Was it a messy, unreal clean, or as neat and clean as a bullet hole? And was it more harrowing to lose a child than to lose a mother too soon? As far back as she could remember, Della had searched for her mom everywhere. In her friends' mothers' faces, in her teachers, in Apple Water's room. What would it have been like to know her scent, her laugh, her voice? The trajectory of her life would surely have been different. She may not have met Dr. Bennett at that Christmas church social. She was just a young college student visiting his cousins on the night. Della had gone to that damn social despite the popular girls in town who'd always said she was witch-spotted and had no business stepping foot in the Lord's house. If she'd known her mother, if she hadn't had that chip on her shoulder, maybe she wouldn't have been so hot on proving those witches wrong. But she didn't know. There was so much she didn't know. Wasn't that why she bought 225.5 ways to to absorb Elise's energy, try to understand her, and hopefully get some answers. Yet, she loved it when Ricky came to the answers after her. Della didn't want to believe Ricky's story because it sounded like the truth. There were a few short knocks on the door. Hi, Ricky, long time no see. What's it been, 5 days? A week? And you must be Ezra. Naz's bell-like voice rang out throughout the house. Della's stomach flip-flopped at the sound of his name. Before, Ezra was simply Ricky's crush, ring, love. But now, if he was who he said he was also the last person to see her mother alive. She was propped up on the pillows of the velvet chaise lounge when Oz came bounding into the living room. Miss Della, your visitors are here. Ricky entered the room, followed by Ezra. The moment she saw Della, she froze. Her bright smile fell. She stood there, caught in a stare of surprise. Not Della, while ready for bed. After a beat, she dropped Ezra's hand and rushed over to her. Gently, Ricky pulled her tiny, stooped shoulders into her embrace. And then, with great effort, Della raised her arms and held her back. Miss Della, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I know you're angry with me. I know everything I told you sounds insane. And I never wanted to hurt you. But I had to tell you. I couldn't go without telling you Ezra's story. The curse. All of it. It wasn't my place to say that you without voice. I shouldn't have even said her name. She blurted this out, barely pausing to take a breath. It's all right. I know. Della quickly patted her back twice, signifying to her it's over. Breathe instant. And Ricky was cutting off her air supply. With one final squeeze, Ricky stood back up. The granddaughter looked lovely without sleep, maxi dress that Della had made for herself 50 years ago. The handmade candy girl, picking her Christmas gift, would have been so touched when she opened it, and she burst into tears. I'm sorry for being unreachable, sugar. Continued Della. I just needed to see you myself. You understand, she said. And it wasn't quite. Della peered past Ricky and saw that Ezra was standing across the room, at a respectful distance. One hand jammed in his pocket. His expression awakened. She hadn't seen him since she and Ricky inexplicably ran into him on the table. She could barely remember what he looked like. If Ricky hadn't left so many messages and letters mentioning him, she wasn't sure she'd remember him at all. Which was especially curious after seeing him this was not a forgettable day. This was not a forgettable day. Was it one more time? She wondered. Mama thought so. But that isn't the big Lisa. The Lisa's trouble started long before she left. Della was so lost in thought that she didn't see Ezra was holding the name sunflowers and yellow roses until the Oz took her and went to find flowers. Della gestured without dreaming. Pleasure to see you again, ma'am. Ezra pecked her on the cheek, looking dapper in herringbone trousers and an open collar shirt. Della felt that if he wore a hat, he would tip. I appreciate the invitation. I'll imagine you will. I know I'm the last person you'll ever see. With all due respect, you don't know me at all, Mr. Walker. Ricky blinked. Her eyes darted at Ezra. What about that story? He said he threw his mouth. Beg pardon. No need. Sit down, you two. She said, gesturing to the upset. And eat this food. I owe it so much. I simply can't eat it. I just here recently rediscovered the delights of cream wheat. It's got all I can stomach. She attempted to smile. She knew she had to tell Ricky the truth. I know I don't look well. I'm not well. There's no easy way to tell your loved ones who've got terminal cancer. Ricky turned ashen. Ezra still silent, grasped her breath. She held on for dear life, her knuckles turning white. I've been ailing since 2016. It comes and goes. This time will be the last time. Let the doctors tell him. She delivered this news matter of fact. But don't you worry, we all die of something. And my life has been good. I'm happy. I'm not scared of dying. I'm actually curious about it. Besides, life sits shoulder to shoulder with death. They surround us all the time. Lately, I've been receiving visitors in my dreams. People I've known and loved but have passed on. They're the sweetest, most welcoming dreams. Oftentimes, I even wake up disappointed to be awake. I just want to go with them, as silly as it sounds. Maybe that's the idea. Our people visit us when it's time to go to help us transition. Not to be afraid of death. And I'm not. The one thing that bothered me is that I've seen everyone but my doctor. My beloved. Her voice cracked on beloved. But she moved on. Della had barely said 2 words in the past couple of days, and now she couldn't stop. Held rapt, Ricky and Ezra sat across from her. Ricky stricken, and Ezra solid. And they didn't try to interject. So she kept going. Last night he finally came to me. Handsome as the devil in his fedora, oxfords, and his tickled smile. One so big his eyes disappeared. Oh, I'd like to pass out from relief. Without saying it, I knew wherever I am going next, I'll be safe with him. I'm lucky to have a love like that. Some people don't, you know. Some people go before they are loved correctly, or even at all. She looked Ezra in the eye, a piercing yet kind look. You love Ricky. Ezra drew up a little taller in his seat. Yes, ma'am. With your eyes or your heart. With everything. Squeezing Ricky's hand, he held Della's impenetrable gaze. For a long time, I thought I knew what my calling was. My grand purpose. When I met Ricky, I knew I was wrong. I was a fool thinking I was going to do anything right. They heard a sniffle, and all 3 turned their heads. Naz stood in the archway, tears streaming down her face. Naz, if you don't find some business. The nurse waved, and patting her eyes for the Kleenex, headed back down the hall. If you love her, why did you tell her this malarkey about her curse? Immortality. My mother, Felice. Because it's true, confessed Ezra White. Della's eyes narrowed. She was testing me. Did you love my mother? Answer fast now, don't think up a lie. No, he said, his voice low. I didn't. I couldn't love at that point in my life. I was full of grief. I was turned around and lost. It looked like I had it all, but I was dulled by all the loss. Felice. Being with Felice pulled me out of it. She was bright, unafraid, and her strength was contagious. Her energy was intoxicating at times, but I didn't love her. And she knew it. Her death was my fault. I accept full responsibility. She wanted me to come back with her to Louisiana, and I couldn't. I wasn't who she needed me to be. Della studied Ezra, unsure if she could trust him. She trusted Ricky, but who would have thought in the final chapter of her life she'd be called to believe something so outlandish? Here she was staring into the very young eyes of a man who'd apparently known her mother. The only person who'd ever given her real details about Felice. She had to be sure he wasn't just insane or delusional. She wanted to do her mother justice. Did you make her think you were in love with her? He paused and thought for a long time. After a few moments, he said quietly, yes, I suppose I did. 'Cause you liked feeling needed, I reckon. His mouth twitched. Ezra looked ashamed. He looked exposed, yanked out of his hiding place. Thing is, men stay thinking that women are the supporting characters in their story. Ever think you were just a character in hers? I suppose she just wanted a family. A father for her daughter, a man to legitimize her. Not saying she was right to want those things from you. But you were the man who let her down on the wrong day. So, you believe him? Ricky asked. I didn't say that, Della said hotly. I'm speaking in hypotheticals. I brought something for you. Ezra took an envelope out of his coat pocket. Rising up from the love seat, he handed it to Della. Steadying her hands, her heart beating fast, she opened the envelope and unearthed a small, delicate, and yellowy photograph. It was an almost totally faded picture of a girl covering her breasts and sitting with her legs crossed on the stump of a tree. She was barely visible under the shadow of a moss-hung oak. Her hair rippled in chin-length waves. Her eyes were wide-set, round, yearning. She looked heartbreakingly young. When Felice was dancing at Eden Lounge, one of the chorus girls somehow got a hold of this photograph. She'd taken it when she was younger back in her hometown. The dancer passed it around, and Felice was ashamed about it. So I bought the photo from the dancer, and this was the only copy. I tracked down the photographer and bought the film. I wanted to help her. I just wanted to help her. One of the last things she said to me was how much she missed you. And she loved you. And wanted to be with you. Della swallowed a dry lump forming in her throat. She'd waited forever to hear these words. Blinking back tears, she peered at the photo. It was her mother, undeniably. It was the same face of the woman in the Eden Lounge promo shot Felice had sent back home to Nana. It was Felice. Della's heart sank at the desperation in her mother's eyes, the vulnerability peeking out from the tough exterior. That's the girl whose honor I defended in the schoolyard, she thought. I was fighting for this lost, misunderstood girl who used the only power she had to get ahead. A hungry girl who wanted more. I was fighting for her. I wasn't the only one. Ezra had fought for her too. She knew that now. I believe you, she said. Ezra and Ricky looked at each other, and then at Della. They sat back in their seats, relief flooding them both. Thank God, breathed Ricky. Yes, Della believed. But with growing horror, she realized that meant Ricky really did have only a few more days left. Della might have been at peace with her own passing, but she couldn't bear it for Ricky. Her granddaughter had things to do, so much beauty to pour into the world, so much good love to bask in. It wasn't her time. Now, Della said, her voice weak from talking. What's to be done about this curse? There's nothing we can do, Ricky said, resigned. Felice sacrificed herself to activate the curse. The only way to reverse it would be to sacrifice someone else, which is impossible. Listen to me, and I truly believe this. You'll be fine, Della said with a sigh. Between the two of you, I got a feeling you can fix anything that comes your way, hex or no hex. But I'm tired. I need to go to bed. Ricky, take that look off your face. This isn't the last time we'll see each other. And Ezra, ma'am, thank you for this, she said, holding the photograph to her chest. Thank you. After they left, Della lay on the couch for hours. She kept thinking of what Ezra had said. She missed you, and she loved you, and wanted to be with you. As Della reflected on this, she reminded herself that she had no regrets. She'd loved hard and well, and been loved in return. And she'd checked off almost every item on her bucket list. 1, dye my hair fluorescent pink. 2, 2. Date a woman, preferably younger. 3. Visit one of those nude Russian bathhouses. 4. Ride a helicopter over Manhattan. 5. Bury a grudge. Bury a grudge. Her heart began to thunder in her chest. Without thinking, she fished a ballpoint pen and Ricky's wildflower seed note cards out of the coffee table drawer. The ones that Ricky said were plantable. In her now almost unreadable scrawl, she wrote, "Dear Mama, I understand. And I love you. Always. Your Adelaide." Using all the strength she had, she rose from the chaise lounge. Naz helped her down the stairs and outside to the front of Wild Things. Along the footpath in front of the shop, Ricky had plotted a small garden of lush greenery. With Naz's assistance, Della dug a small hole with her hands. She buried her note in the rich soil, patting dirt over the hole. She said a silent prayer that the paper would burn a colorful array of wildflowers. From her forgiveness, a permanent flowering would grow in tribute to a woman born at the wrong time and in the wrong place. A doomed girl who, with the right care, love, and support, might have learned to use her unfathomable powers for good. Della buried her grudge. And now, she was at peace. Chapter 23. A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. February 28th through 29th, 2024. Leap Day. It was time. The hours leading up to Leap Day were warm, in that weird climate-changey way. To Ricky, the world was off balance. Everything felt disjointed, surreal, and hazy. Especially the energy between Ricky and Ezra. Time seemed to hiccup, jumping from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., then to 4:30. Lost in sorrow, the two of them barely spoke for most of the day. The level of helplessness Ezra felt had ratcheted from cruel to torturous. There was no way to save Ricky. He tried to preemptively check her into the ER, but as it turned out, there was no way to hospitalize and prevent a totally healthy woman's alleged future death due to circumstances unknown. Ricky stopped by Tuesday's condo for a final farewell, but her best friend refused to entertain her dark fate. Instead of saying goodbye, she gave Ricky an aromatherapeutic facial and a glass of Chardonnay. Ms. Della wouldn't say goodbye either. When Ricky knocked on her door, face dour, shoulders slumped, the elder woman shook her finger in her face, handed her a Lorna Doone, and sent her on her way. A world without Ricky was too outrageous for her people to accept. She didn't contact her family. Saying goodbye to them would involve explaining why, which was impossible. Fading away felt cleaner somehow, kinder. Deep down, she prayed that her sisters had told her parents that she was doing well, even if it was a long shot. Considering she'd unceremoniously booted them from her abode. She hoped they'd told them about Ezra, his delicious meal, her gorgeous shop. And maybe they would even share the article about her viral flowers. She hoped her dad knew she'd found success, that she'd built all of this herself. Ricky bargained with every god she could think of for more time. A few extra weeks, even. Days. Hours. But she knew it was futile. Her story was over. Their story was over. The time for deluding themselves into a false sense of security or safety had passed. As the afternoon drifted into early evening, the two looked at each other across Ricky's tidy fold-out dining table. They'd been silent for ages, picking up their takeout pad thai and avoiding each other's eyes. Finally, Ricky broke their solemn trance. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. I always thought I'd die an old lady in my sleep. Remember the gray-haired couple who died together in their bed at the end of Titanic? When I was a kid, I thought it was the most devastatingly romantic thing. That was horrible. They drowned, Ezra said with a sigh, his eyes pools of sadness. They drowned old, after a life fully lived. And they were with each other at the end, sleeping peacefully. Letting out a heavy exhale, Ezra shut his eyes and rubbed his brows. This conversation, their reality, pure hell. And there was no way to escape. An idea surfaced in his brain, as if literally rising from the murky depths of a dark sea. Maybe that's how we square it then. We'll do like that couple. Ricky lowered her fork and looked at him quizzically. What, sleep through it? Of all the choices, it seems like the softest landing. Ezra reached across the tiny table, taking her hand in his. Dr. Arroyo Abreu had lectured him often about the perils of using avoidance as a coping mechanism. Respectfully, he didn't give a fuck about her warning tonight. So they bought an over-the-counter sleeping aid and a bottle of obnoxiously expensive white wine. The multiple shade Ronquin 2015. And Ricky whipped up a tray of weed brownies. No doubt the combination would knock them out before midnight, as the 28th led into the 29th. It was a solid plan. If she had to go, at least she wouldn't feel it. She just wouldn't wake up. And Ezra would be spared the agony of watching his love fade away. At 6 p.m., as Ricky pulled the brownies out of the oven, Ezra and Ricky eyed each other, their expressions twisted with sadness. Her emotions mirrored his. They knew without words. They both felt the same thing. Solemnly, they gathered a blanket, pillows, and a duvet, along with the wine, and as inevitably as they were drawn to each other and to Harlem, an invisible force led Ricky and Ezra upstairs, as if pulled by an invisible string. They were compelled to return to the room, the scene of the crime. They headed up there in silence and laid out the bedding. For hours they held each other, cloaked in the darkness of this strangely balmy evening. Ezra sat up, holding Ricky close, her back resting against his chest. His arms were tight around her, clasping her hands. They couldn't bear to not touch each other, especially now. This is it, thought Ricky, gazing up into the endless sky. The end. And Ricky had dressed for the end. She was wearing a sweeping, low-cut tangerine velvet gown from 1961, per reclaimed vintagegowns.com, topped with a faux fur ivory duster. The velvet was bare in some places, and the lining was torn. The dress had a sense of grandeur. She wasn't about to face the afterlife not draped in something epic. After all, it was the last thing she'd ever wear. I don't regret any of it, she said with bleary finality. Holding the wine bottle by the neck, she took a long, hearty sip and passed it over her shoulder to Ezra. What don't you regret? Us. I wouldn't take back a second I spent with you. Ezra clenched his eyes shut, trying to hold on to her words. He didn't deserve her forgiveness, and he certainly didn't deserve her love. I'm so sorry, Ricky. Please, don't be sorry. No more apologizing, okay? It's not your fault. You couldn't have stopped this. You've never done anything to harm anyone in your life. You shouldn't have to pay for my mistakes. Why you? Why me? Why you? Why Felice? She asked softly. We could go around in circles forever. And we don't have that time. She squeezed his hands tighter. Her words hung in the air, dismantling them both, cutting through their false sense of calm. What will you do? She asked. You know, after. I don't know. His voice was deep, raspy, pain etched in every syllable. There is no after. I just see everything going blank. He dropped his head into the hollow of her shoulder, breathing in her skin, her hair. I won't feel anything real ever again. Nothing will matter. Moments passed, and together they gazed up into the sky. The moon was so red, it looked disproportionately big and low. A blood moon. From their vantage point on the roof, it was a mesmerizing, surreal sight. In her short time in Harlem, Ricky had come very close to living the life she'd always dreamed of, and becoming who she'd always hoped to be. So many of her dreams had been realized, and she'd finally started to see the power in what she could create. It was heartfelt. The only thing better? The idea of her and Ezra together, till they were old, gray, full, on a satisfying life. I thought I'd live well into my 90s, whispered Ricky, achieving the wisdom that's supposed to come with old age. Does it ever happen? Still waiting, said Ezra, his voice sounding thin. You know, you might not get to experience being old. Look at all you've done. He gestured at the neighborhood below them, where people were cozy in their apartments, going about their evening, living their normal, lucky lives. You'll live on in all the plants and flowers around Harlem. Your art is woven into the fabric of this place now, and everyone who knows you will carry it with them, he said, his breath hitching. I'll carry you with me forever. Overwhelmed, Ricky nodded and burrowed deeper against his chest. After a long time, she spoke. You know what I can't stop thinking about? She asked. What's that? The song you played for me. The one I keep hearing in my dreams. Our song. God, it's perfect. It's like the blood in my veins put to music. I'm taking it with me. Ricky gripped his right hand in both of hers and held it against her heart. A small sigh escaped her lips. Ezra stored the sound of it away in his brain for safekeeping. Where did the melody come from? She asked. Tell me the story behind it. You, he murmured, his mouth against the top of her head. You're the story. I've been composing it for you for 124 years. Oh, she said, pushing down her swelling emotions. She didn't want to fall to pieces. Ricky had hoped to face the end with grace, with some semblance of calm. What is it called? Was all she managed to say. A title had never occurred to him. It would have made sense to name it, but the song lived in his soul, not his brain. It lived somewhere beyond sense and reason. He took a deep